Hi, everybody. I am Megan with Sidekick Accounting and your Accounting Sidekick. And I'm here today to talk to Tammy, or Tammy's going to talk to us about our insurance, because even though, insurance kind of falls in line with the taxes and accounting conversation that people don't usually like to have. However, just like accounting and taxes, it's super important for your business, because if you don't have it, it can be the difference between paying a couple $100 versus paying thousands and thousands of dollars. And in some cases, if you don't have the right insurance, you can even put yourself out of business. So you want to make sure that you're covered and you have an understanding about it. And so I am bringing Tammy on because she is the insurance expert to talk a little bit more about it. If you have questions, please drop them in the comments. We'll talk a little bit more and answer any questions once she's done talking a little bit more about insurance and what we need to know. Go ahead, Tammy.
Thanks, Megan. I really appreciate the opportunity to share some information with all of your followers. And I put together some information about the two critical components when it comes to thinking about business insurance, the basics of the different policies that are out there, along with some statistics, and then we'll kind of wrap up with a common buzzword in our industry right now. But like Megan said, it's typically, I always joke with people that I'm break and negative to people, and it's not a popular topic of conversation, in addition to people not really being fond of insurance companies or agents. But there are a lot of good ones out there, and hopefully you'll find value in what I can offer today, and we'll kind of take it from there. So essentially, when I think about a small business, I think of two critical components that help protect the business and essentially the business's future. One would be risk management, which I like to call that the proactive piece of ensuring or protecting your business. And then there's, of course, the reactive portion, which is the insurance policies themselves. So I always say that they're equally important, because placing emphasis or priority on the front end proactive side is definitely going to help you reduce your exposures or mitigate those losses to be as minimal as possible. Of course, there's insurance policies in place. Hopefully you have some in place, but managing those risks ahead of time is more advisable, because nobody likes dealing with an insurance claim. It's going to be more time and energy that you have to put into things that you already don't have enough time during the day for. So essentially, risk management is a process of identifying, assessing, reducing, or accepting risk. So that's where we kind of sit down together in, I call a discovery meeting, and we take a look at what your business operations are and where your exposures are. Do you have employees? Do you have customers coming to and from your location, and different variables like that will help me create a customized risk insurance or risk management program to protect you. So with that being said, some risk management examples would be employee handbooks. They're very important to have. Staying on top of employment laws and understanding, what you can and cannot do if you do have employees. Annual in-depth insurance reviews. If you're not doing those with your existing agent already, that's something that's critical, because there's a lot that changes in a year's time with your business operations, as well as what's going on in the industry. I'll tell you that what I'm talking about now with my clients was way different than 5 years ago. So it changes extremely fast. Safety policies and practices, paying attention to industry or injury hazards, rather, whether it be customers or employees, employee training, employee onboarding processes, following DOT compliance, if you have different vehicles that are used for the business, contract agreements with either subcontractors or clients, and of course, security systems like network security and firewalls and software patches and those kind of things. Those are just some ideas of what risk management practices would be. A lot of small business owners are unfortunately forced to wear many hats. You're the owner, you're the bookkeeper in some cases, unless you hire Megan. You are the HR personnel, you're the maintenance crew. Everything falls on you, and that's typical of a small business or a startup in trying to get things rolling, and insurance and risk management will unfortunately fall to the back burner. And, I definitely understand that, but it is very risky because a lot of you have put your entire life and, potentially your life savings into taking your dream and making it a reality. So it's very critical to protect that. Unless you're a big risk taker and you like to go to the casino and you throw everything you got on that one hand of blackjack and just hope for the best. But I don't advise of that. So, depending on your insurance agent or the agency that you work with, some, like myself and Spectrum Insurance, will actually provide a lot of those services that I mentioned earlier for you. The employee handbooks, the HR helpline, the DOT compliance, safety training, employee training, you name it. We have a whole slew of things, which is a big reason why I chose to actually partner up with Spectrum when I was searching about a year and a half ago to move to who I'm working with now. So, obviously who you choose to work with is equally as important as the proper coverage, because you need to feel like they've really got your back and that they are easy to work with and responsive. So, a BOP. That just stands for Business Owner Policy. What it's doing is it's just kind of creating a convenient package of coverages that's tailored to small business owners. Your common coverages wrapped into that one policy are going to be property and liability. And then, of course, there's going to be some other ones that get bundled in there, but those are the primary ones. If you're a bigger business, or depending on your operations, those might be broken out into separate policies, the general liability and then the property. These different coverages I'll kind of detail a little bit further down here, but another type of policy is going to be your property insurance. So even if you're leasing a space, you still want to insure or protect your business inventory, equipment, whatever it might be that is in your day-to-day operations. The liability side is, of course, going to protect you against alleged harm or to others, or property damage to others' belongings, etc., defective product, error in service or reputational harm, those kind of things that can also affect your customer or anybody else that you come in contact with. The liability is going to actually include defense costs. So most often, these lawsuits are brought upon us, and a lot of times they might be settled with, without finding the business liable, but there's a ton of racked up attorney fees that go into making that happen. Those are part of the insurance coverages. So a lot of times, that's all that ends up being paid. But there's enough times that there is a judgment to the defendant, or the plaintiff, sorry. But another policy is, of course, is going to be your commercial or business auto insurance. A lot of us are familiar with auto insurance, and it's very similar in the sense that it's going to protect you in case you cause an accident, cause bodily injury, or cause property damage, in addition to coverage for the business-owned vehicle damage that it might suffer. What's different, though, is a lot of small business owners just assume automatically that their personal insurance policy is sufficient, it's going to protect them, but a lot of personal insurance policies actually have exclusions in them for business use. So at the time of adjusting a claim, they might find out that you were, running errands for your business or going to see clients, and they could potentially actually deny that claim. Now, would they actually do that? It's really hard to say, and it's going to vary from company to company, but I'll tell you what, I don't want to take that risk, and I hope that you won't either. And, sometimes personal insurance policies are okay with business use, but just have that conversation with your agent and make sure that it's a known reality that that's going on. The other thing with commercial auto insurance is that you're going to have access to better liability limits. A lot of times the personal policy is going to cap out at like $250,000, whereas the standard auto insurance through a business is going to be $1 million. And, for example, let's just say you rear end, you're sliding on the ice, you can't come to a stop, you rear end one car that rear ends the next car, and maybe even more. Depending on what kind of vehicles they have and what kind of injuries they sustain, you could easily blow past that $250,000 in coverage. And there's ways to, add on top of the liability policies that I'll talk about in a little bit here. The next one is sometimes called an inland marine policy or an equipment floater. And what that does is it gives you specialized protection for stuff that you might take away from the address where your business is insured. So, if you do a service type business and you take tools to and from like your shop location to a customer, a lot of times on the standard property or business contents coverage, that those kind of things aren't covered. Or, highly specialized or very expensive equipment, we like to schedule just like you would your diamond ring on your home policies, if you want to think about it that way. Let's see here, workers' compensation. So many of you may or may not have employees, but it's definitely a state law that you have to carry workers' compensation if you have employees. And you definitely want to think about that before you hire them rather than the week after you hire them, just to make sure that you're not going to be out of compliance and in hot water, et cetera. So the basis of workers' comp insurance is, of course, for injuries and indemnity for employees. So if they're hurt, their medical bills are paid, as well as their lost wages, et cetera. So obviously, the lost wages, et cetera, is not covered by a standard health insurance. The other really important thing about workers' comp is that if there is an injury, it's an important thing that your employees know that they need to tell you right away so that you can report it to the insurance company right away, because there's usually a 24-hour window that that's supposed to be done. And again, just makes things simpler and less complicated for you if you go along and follow those rules. Let's see here. So the premiums for workers' compensation are going to be the same no matter where you go, whether you're working with me or Bob Smith down the road with acuity versus integrity, because those rates are set by the state and they're determined by the type of business or operations that you have in addition to the payroll. So basically they assign a rate to the type of operation or work that you're having your employee do and multiply it by the payroll that's paid on that. So of course, a logger is going to be paying a higher rate than someone in clerical, just because the risk is greater. And then a lot of times there's an audit at the end of the year that's just going to confirm that those actual payroll kind of matched up what the estimates were at the beginning of the policy term. Some professional, if you're in the service industry where you're giving advice, you're making recommendations, you are designing things, you definitely want to have this kind of coverage, the professional liability. That's going to protect you from lawsuits where clients are claiming that you failed to perform the job as expected, or it caused them financial harm for the way that you conducted the job, et cetera. Whereas that liability, that general liability, is just for bodily injuries and property damage. Employment practices liability. So again, if you have employees, this is a big one, and it's typically automatically excluded in your standard liability policy. This is also known as your hiring and firing coverage. We all know that the world is very lawsuit happy, and everybody's kind of looking for that free payday. And all you have to do is say one wrong word that can get you in a lawsuit. So like I said, we call it your hiring and firing coverage, your kind of backup safety net in case you do something wrong. Directors and officers liability. So LLCs, et cetera. This is going to be protection for the directors or officers or members of whatever organization that it is, protecting their personal assets. So you can be held liable for mismanaging the business or making poor business decisions, which can get kind of scary. And again, those claims, as well as cybercrime claims, are completely blowing the old numbers out of the water last year and this year. And I'll talk about cyber in a little bit. Earlier, I mentioned some extra liability coverage, so to speak, and that's actually an umbrella policy. Not uncommon that you would actually have that on your personal insurance already for the event that, something catastrophic happened and your liability limits on that primary policy were eaten up. This is kind of your extra, change jar. It's got the extra money in it to pay the excess instead of you having to tap into your personal pockets to pay that difference. And last but not least, probably the most important policy that we'll discuss today is cyber insurance. This is coverage for crimes committed against you with a computer, and it spans a great variety of different ways that that type of crime can occur. If you were to say to me today, Tammy, I have $1,000 to spend on insurance, what would you recommend? What should I buy? And I would actually probably tell you the cyber insurance coverage before insuring your building against fire or theft. That's how critical it is. But so many people don't carry this type of insurance right now because, I don't know, it's just not commonly brought up by insurance agents, or if you've had an agent for a while and you're not doing those annual reviews, they're just not bringing it up in a recommendation. Talk some facts. So would you have guessed that 40% of small business owners don't have any insurance? That just blows my mind. It's so scary and crazy all at the same time. 75% of businesses that are insured are actually underinsured. That's also very scary because that leaves you, it's kind of one of those things, what good is an insurance policy if it's not protecting you against the risk that you face? You might as well, throw that $500 down the toilet, because it's Murphy's Law. It's that one thing that's not covered in your policy that's probably going to happen. 35% of small business owners will experience an incident that would result in an insurance claim within 12 months. And, if you're not one of those, there's definitely statistics to support that within 10 years, you're definitely, as a small business owner, going to experience a significant type of loss. So that's why, obviously having adequate insurance is very important. There's nothing stopping something from happening to you or your business. And I used to sell life insurance many days ago, and I have no interest in doing it again. But a lot of times, the stance that people would take is that, nothing's going to happen to me, or, why would I care because I'm already gone? What would it matter if I have it? And unfortunately, none of us are invincible, and things absolutely happen, or I wouldn't have a job. Insurance wouldn't be a thing, and people wouldn't be out there making, lots of money off of different kind of losses that are happening. Like I mentioned earlier, you're sticking a lifetime of work, money, etc., into your business. Why wouldn't you protect it? It's pennies on the dollar, and I always look at it as I would much rather pay $1,000 today than $20,000 6 months from now. And, you can obviously see the difference in how that would affect your bottom line. Some average cost per claim type. So just to kind of give you some perspective of how much claims are actually costing, or the impacts to businesses. So reputational harm is averaging at about $50,000 per claim. A vehicle accident around $45,000. Fire damage at about $35,000. $35,000 again for product liability. Customer injury around $30,000. So those are just gives you some sort of an idea, if you don't have insurance, what kind of expenses you could be looking at for any of those kind of situations. And the most important and latest buzzword, of course, is the cybercrime, like I just mentioned. And those hackers and criminals are just seeing that there's such an opportunity out there for taking advantage of small businesses. And again, that's because you wear so many hats, your resources are limited, and a lot of times those safety protocols are not put into place. You might not have, you're probably not an IT specialist, if that's the field of work that you're in, where there's just not proper network security, there's not proper firewalls or software patches, or, antivirus, anti-malware protection. And that really leaves you susceptible. When we think of cybercrime, we think, that only happens to Target, or that only happens to these big, huge corporations. Those are the ones that we're hearing about in the news, because why would the news, want to put a story out there about a cyber attack on a small business? It's just not going to get the viewers and the ratings that Target's going to. So, like I said, small businesses are actually a main target because they're easy. It's an easy target for these criminals. Examples of some different cybercrime, ransomware. So that's where essentially you might click on a link or go on a website, and there's some software essentially that's put onto your computer where they can access your system and kind of take it hostage. And they're going to request a certain amount of money in order to get your system back. And unless you're doing regular backups, and you have the time then to stop your business completely to install those and get back up to speed, and hopefully you haven't lost anything, that's definitely something that is insured. And the biggest struggle that I have with illustrating the importance of this kind of coverage, especially for data breaches, because they're common, is that this goes beyond whether or not you accept payments and whether or not you have social security numbers, et cetera. This can be names, addresses, emails, anything. So if you track, your client contact information, that's considered a data breach if somebody gets a hold of that that's not supposed to. Extortion, social engineering, and we've actually had in our office 3 situations in the last year of different clients experiencing coverage. And unfortunately, we explained it, and they decided to not insure the risk and actually signed off on it, saying they're aware of it. But that's pretty scary. That's a lot of money.
Could you say that last one? Could you say that last one again? Because I think my internet kind of got goofy.
Sure. About the claims that our clients have had?
That last one that you were just talking about. You said you had 3 incidences in your office, and then I think it kind of cut out for me.
Sure. So we've had, within our office, there's a couple of us agents. So we've had 3 clients in the last year that have experienced either a social engineering situation, a ransomware, or extortion type of situation that could result in a claim. Some of them had insurance, some of them did not, and that was by their choice. We advised them of it, and they just did not take it. But those claims ranged between $18,000 and up to $400,000. So it's definitely very scary, and it does happen all the time, even in Green Bay, Appleton, all these small Wisconsin engineering. What's common is that they can put tracking software on your computer that kind of monitors your email and your dialect with different people. So it can really mimic someone else's normal conversation they would have with you. You get tricked, you click on something, and there you go. There's $18,000 transferred from your bank account to theirs. And it's just, any small business really can't afford for something like that to happen. The average cyber-related incident is costing a small business $34,000 per incident in the United States, more statistics. And that it can actually be higher than that, just because we haven't accounted for lost contracts, reputational harm, remediation. So, if there's a data breach, by law, federal law, you're required to take certain actions to notify these people, offer credit monitoring, you name it. There's so many different costs involved. And many of the insurance policies that we have access to and offer actually cover those expenses. And they have a forensic team that just dives right in once a claim happens to get your system back, do all the remediation processes that are required. Some of the vulnerabilities that a small business would have would include point of sale systems, landline phones, mobile phones, wireless or remotely controlled devices like thermostats. I know there's so many things out there now that even cybercrime is an issue on your personal insurance side, because a lot of us have those remotely operated homes, and they can take your home over and not give it back until you give them money, of course. Staff mistakes. A lot of situations are staff mistakes, and just natural human error. Lost or stolen devices that have information on it, or it's not encrypted properly and they get access to it. Just simple lack of knowledge, and of course, unprotected files. I have enough clients that still have, all they have is paper files, the manila folders and the file cabinet, et cetera. And if somebody, gets a hold of those that shouldn't, it can be pretty scary. But obviously, that's a lot to digest. And like I said, this is obviously not everybody's favorite topic to discuss. And I know you were just so excited, you probably couldn't even sleep last night waiting to hear what I had to say. But ultimately, it's not something that I even anticipated growing up, that I was going to become an insurance agent. I just, with the the timeline of events, I ended up becoming an insurance agent, and I've stuck with it for 18 years, not because I love insurance, but because I love working with people, and especially small business owners, which is my niche. Like I said, you just don't have access to many resources, and a lot of people are chasing the big dollars. And I really, essentially get a high and satisfaction and validation for what I do when I'm able to help somebody out, or even just share the knowledge with them so that they can update their policy with their current agent. It's not an easy job. There's some sleepless nights worrying because my anxiety brain will continue to spin and spin, like, oh, did I do that? And, oh, I should reach out to so-and-so and make sure they're aware of this, etc. But like I said, I enjoy spreading the word, and I'm always available for questions, covered reviews. I'm certainly not the pressure type of salesperson. I have no problem sharing the knowledge that I have and would be happy to help in any way. But my parting thoughts would be, if you have insurance currently, that's fantastic and pat on the back. But when is the last time that you thoroughly reviewed it? Did you buy it 3 years ago when your business started and you really just kind of received an annual new book with new dates on it? What is your agent doing for you besides delivering that renewal policy each year? Are you getting additional services from them, like those employee handbooks, et cetera? You definitely want to, get the most for your money, because obviously, not indirectly, you are paying the agent because the insurance company is paying them commission. And then if you don't have insurance, my biggest question is why? What are you waiting for? Are you truly a risk taker or not? If it's just kind of scary and you're, don't like dealing with salespeople, I can certainly understand that. And like I said, I'd be happy to point you in the right direction if I'm not able to help personally. But like I said, I hope you found some value, or at least one little nugget in this time that you've spent with us. And I really appreciate Megan allowing me to spread the word.
Yeah, thank you, Tammy. That was a lot of really great information. A few follow-up questions, One would be, for a business owner or an individual that's like a solopreneur working from home, what kind of insurances should they think about exploring for their situation? Because they might not have a storefront, they're just working out of their home. Do they need to have insurance, and what kind of insurances would be good for them to look into?
Sure. So, the real answer is it unfortunately depends. So it kind of depends on what their operations are. So are they a software consulting company, or are they an accountant, et cetera? So, in a situation of an accountant, obviously I'm going to recommend property coverage, because you probably have some electronics that you need to protect, as well as the cyber insurance, because you definitely have a lot of client files, et cetera. If you are, a engineer or a consultant, you're definitely going to want to have the professional liability above and beyond all. Again, that general liability is for injuries to others and property damage of others. So if you don't have clients coming to and from, I don't think it's as critical as the other components. But that's not to say that it's very, very common in my world that in order to get a contract with a new customer or prospect, you have to prove proof of insurance. And their minimum requirements are typically that general liability, possibly an umbrella, work comp, and then professional liability, depending on what you're doing.
Okay. So just because you're working at home and you're a single business owner doesn't mean you're exempt from having insurance. So it's something you definitely need to look into if you own a business. And I think that's where people sometimes miss it, because they don't even realize that it's something that they should be actively looking into as a business owner, right? It kind of goes to the fact that sometimes you don't know what you don't know. And that's the premise of, this group, to try and help business owners start answering and thinking about those things that they wouldn't otherwise do. So if you do not have an insurance policy, like Tammy said, make sure you talk to an insurance agent. And Tammy is great. She takes a holistic approach to looking at insurance policies and reviewing your business so that you can make sure you're covered on all angles and in all aspects, to make sure that if anything happens, that you're fully covered and you're not excluded based off of, having this policy or not having this policy, so she's looking at that to make sure you have all of those things covered. So if you don't have somebody to talk to, talk to Tammy. She's excellent. And this group is very diverse. So what areas do you help service? Is it just Wisconsin-based businesses? Are you able to help with other out-of-state businesses? What does that look like for you, Tammy?
Sure. So typically, just because of, I'm also a mom and have other things that I'm doing, I typically focus on, the Green Bay, Fox Valleys, and even North Tamarack counties. But we are licensed in several states, so it just kind of depends. I think there's only a handful that we're not as an agency, so we're definitely able to help a wide variety of businesses wherever they're based, as well as industries. Right now, I would consider myself a generalist because I have everything from a hairstylist to architects to, construction companies to manufacturing companies. So I'm really able to help a wide variety of clients. We have access to like 40 insurance companies, so I'm definitely going to be shopping for the best rates and coverage for you. And like you said, a lot of times, if it's just you're working from home, it's just not even a thought that comes into your mind, like, oh, it's just me. I'm just at home. I'm just working on my computer. Like, why would I need insurance? And it's just not thought of. And that's what I like to do is, like you said, you don't know what you don't know. So once I have a meeting with you and I explain to you, this is where all of your exposures are. Now that you're aware of it, it's totally up to you how much of that risk you want to take on and retain. But it's important to, educate yourself because nobody's going to be as invested in your future as you are.
Yep, that's so true. Well, thank you so much. Can you tell everybody how to get a hold of you or how they can contact you if they want to take next steps in reviewing their insurance?
Absolutely. Thank gosh that you're on here because I probably would have forgot to mention that. But I can also comment on the live with my contact information. But the best way to reach me is my cell phone because I am in and out all day and I always want to be available to you. It's going to be 920-655-2440. And then my email, bear with me, Tammy, Tammy, Katers, Katers, at Spectrum insgroup.com. So spectruminsgroup.com.
Okay, great.
So thanks again. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you. This has been a pleasure and it's an important topic to talk about. So hopefully people take time to look at it and we'll follow up because it's definitely something that's important. So thank you so much for joining me today. And I hope all of you have a great rest of your day and we will talk again soon. Thanks.